Okay, this is a second critique for Vytautas. Um, the big thing that I think right off the bat is if you're doing perspective, let me just do some things here real quick. Okay, so the first and foremost thing that I see right off the bat is that when you're doing your perspective, you've got this going back here, and then I'm going to assume that this other one's going back something like this, and your vanishing points um, are probably going forward. But so let's take a look at this. If this is a straightforward um, aspect here, the problem is this guy here, this one in the center here, is too what's the word I want to say? He's too far back and he's too far. There's too low. So that being said, if I'm gonna just roughly draw that perspective in there, this guy is just too big and too much in the foreground. Also, you're cutting him off, um, and that's kind of an issue too. What I would say right off the bat is taking. Let's see here. Let's see what we can do here. Taking this guy, and you probably don't want to cut too much of him off. The reason being is you're creating kind of that closed corner tangent. Um, but I would transform him a little bit lower and move him significantly up. And I think that's a big aspect of starting, I think, something like this. Let me just grab some of those darks in here. Just kind of, okay. So I think that's the big issue right there is getting him in line and then also getting this guy, I think, a little bit further. And he's almost a little bit bigger. I would put him something like that. And even probably trim off some of his head. I think his head's a wee bit too big. So that gives them kind of this even keel. It's not this staggered, weird staggered effect. The other aspect is what I would say is the light ball itself. Um, it's in a decent place. However, what I would say, so if you're going to add your brick pattern here, and I'm just going to function new layer here. And so if we're just adding that brick pattern, and I'm just going to actually, let's do a foreground fill on this, and I'm just going to multiply this real quick. Select transform, and I'm just moving this up over here, and we're just going to move this over like so, this down, and this up. The other aspect is if you see this circle, the issue with it is you're cutting it off on 3 different sides. And again, creating kind of another tangent, which isn't too horrible, but let me just grab. So looking at this real quick, so you want that contrast in there. But again, what's happening is you're cutting that off, which is basically causing you to kind of get this big tangent. I'll include that link for talking about tangents and stuff. So those are something that you might want to look at as far as tangents and stuff goes. What else can I tell you here? So just cleaning this up here, just to give me a sense of composition. Um, what else I would do is I would say is to don't be afraid to use gradients when you're doing this stuff, especially like on the floor here. If I take and do a new layer real quick, um, and I'm just going to kind of sample this white color, I can simply use a gradient and then transform that gradient, and it just, or softer brush would give you that better look. And then I would bring in more of your values here into the statues to kind of edge that out. So those are, oops, I probably didn't want to do that. There we go. I just want to make sure some of this is erased. And merge that down, merge this down. And then make sure you have the right contrast too, because if this is a cave going out, what I would do is definitely darken this up. And then if you want a sense of scale, I see that you have the little guys down here. You know, you want that look. Real quick here, and you want that, you know, that idea that these guys are here. But you also want a sense of scale, I think, in the rest of the place. So if you've got pillars, you've got these huge pillars like this. Instead of putting like this pillar here, it's creating kind of a block focal point. So what that means is, like, I'm looking at these three figures, and that's my focus. But then you've got this figure here along that vertex or that central line, and instead, let's take this out like so, and you can start fading some of this background in. But let's do something like, instead, why don't you take and put in with the perspective, um, you can put in some, just ignore the garbage truck behind us, and then so something like this, and this would have to go in perspective according to the other line. But then I can grab, and that's way too bright. Then I can grab this. There we go. All right, so then I can grab a lighter version, like so, and actually it should be underlit. So I'm actually should be reversed around. Let me just make sure I got that right color again. So having it underlit, and then what you want to do is you can create, you know, smaller pillars, and I'm just going to do this real quick here. We're just going to grab this pillar and this, this, and we're just going to grab a little bit Ooh, way too bright. This guy right here, this is what I was looking for. All right, so so we're going to cut that real quick here, which is going to cause an issue on this. So I'm just going to kind of get rid of this. So I transform these pillars and these are way too bright, by the way. And I'm just going to grab all this, merge the layer. Let's merge that back down, something like this. And then I can go in there and erase. And you can kind of create this. I don't know, that may not necessarily be the right thing to do, but that big pillar in the background is something. It's too big. It's too. It draws the eye too much. You almost want like an empty corner going on. Even this cavern right here kind of feels awkward, especially since the figures are walking this way. I think it's okay to have that hidden cavern. I might even dump this, and if you want rubble, I think putting just some base rubble here, back here in the thing. The other thing I would say to do is give them a platform. Like you've got these big strong figures and you need something to almost support it. So I would almost say, give me kind of this platform of something like that, and then even if I just bring out one of these platforms here, something like this, and then you can just kind of something like that, and that little platform, it doesn't seem like much, but that actually gives them kind of a base to stand on, and it's not so they just don't feel like they're just placed on the ground. They feel like they're elevated a little bit more. I mean, if you'd have more space in here, I think I'd even go a little bit more above that and beyond that. And again, the big thing is getting your colors in here, and getting a little bit more noise and stuff like that. Some shadows, things like that. So I think that's what I would do as far as your perspective to kind of implement it into kind of a whole new, whole little different of a scene. It depends. That ball in there really detracts from everything else, but that's fine. You might want to consider putting some sort of bands around it, which would cause, like if you just even had darker bands like this, some design, and then the rest gives you this glow. This adds a little bit more focus to the focal point, instead of this just big white ball. It's just some suggestions, something to think about. So, but I think the perspective, get that in there first, and then line up your figures, and then from there, design the rest of your scene. All right.